Hello everyone, this is Airy, and in this review video I'll be taking a look at River Tales Stronger Together. Now this one caught my attention quite quickly, mainly because of one little statement in their press email that they sent me, and it's that this is a co-op platformer, like it's a family-friendly co-op platformer where you're meant to play with your child or something, and yet they've added a feature where you can, as a single player, play both characters at the same time. And for me, well, for some reason, this is perfect for an extremely specific skill that I've somewhat developed, and it's playing two things at the same time. And I thought, oh wow, that's perfect for me. Like I might as well try this out. Like even though it's kind of an offbeat choice for me, and that's kind of the core premise of the game, or at least the other side of it, because this is in effect a co-op platformer that's fairly simplistic. It's very beautiful, and you're kind of required, like the entire game is built around having two characters who can only traverse in one type of area. So you have Finn the fish, who can only traverse in water, and you have Furple the cat, who can only walk on land. And both of their abilities are identical. Like you can move around, you can jump, and you can grab. And there isn't really much else to it. Like it's you can grab obstacles and move them, but for the most part they only affect the other side. So like as a fish, you grab levers and you pull up platforms that the cat can traverse, and as the cat you pull things and open gates that the fish can swim through. And the entire game, at least the amount that I've played so far, seems to be littered with this kind of constant back and forth and synergy. So I think it's really great if you're a parent playing with a child who's kind of learning about platformers for the first time, because the controls are also rather simple. But the thing that caught my attention was this secondary thing where they seemed to throw in as a feature afterwards. Like this, I think this game was in early access or something, but they added the feature eventually where you could just control both characters at the same time with a single controller, where one character is on the left analog stick and the jump and grab buttons on the left shoulders, and the other character is on the right analog stick and jump and grab is on the right shoulders. And the thing is, there are a handful of games, maybe even just one other game, that kind of works with this concept, and that's Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. That game, like, I don't really know much about that game, and that was a very long time ago, but that was kind of more on the artistic side, where it was an intentional choice, and there wasn't really an intention for you to play with two people. It was always meant to be one person playing two characters, and kind of building a story around that, because for games in general, the camera is usually on the right stick, so you're not really used to controlling movement with the right stick unless you, say, play some kind of flight simulator game where you need to like control your pitch and yaw with the right stick. And so in Brothers, this created a kind of story where the more skillful brother, who was able to do better at platforming and jumping and stuff like that, was controllable on the left side, while the one who was kind of like uncoordinated and unskilled with running around was on the right side. And this was one of the things that I thought of when I started up the game and started controlling the characters, because I thought there would be a natural fit here where the fish might be, you know, subject to the inertia of water, and there'd be drift and stuff like that, and that would explain the right stick. And the cat would, you know, be a bit more skillful with jumping around and be on the left stick. But the thing is, it's actually the other way around, and there's no setting to switch them. And I have no idea if this was an intentional choice or not. Or maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but it kind of leveled the playing field. There's this cat. I think the story here is that it's a kitten of some sort, and like there isn't really much going here. Like there's no dialogue, of course, they're all animals, and the cutscenes are a little bit long-winded, but it seems to be a bit of a shallow reason to just justify the cat and the fish ending up along this mountainside stream where they end up working together. Whether or not it was intentional, I thought that it was kind of an interesting decision to make, where it kind of leveled the playing field, because the fish doesn't have, even though the controls are the same, it kind of feels like the fish doesn't have as many abilities, or there's not as much an expectation to jump around, while the cat does, and yet the cat is controlled on the weaker side of your hand when it comes to playing on a controller and the kind of expectation of skill that you have. On the other hand, if you're left-handed or you're ambidextrous, then this isn't a problem at all, but most people are right-handed, so yeah. But I just found it an amusing thing to advertise as a secondary feature, because like I've for some reason I just have that skill of having two characters attached to a single controller, and like I've done that. I ended up modding, well, not really modding, but I just messed with the key bindings for a couple of games, and I ended up doing that. I controlled two characters at the same time, and it's the most esoteric thing in the world. I doubt that the company knew this when they sent me the key, but that's you know, that's my context. That's I just happen to have that skill. And yes, this footage that you're watching right now really is me playing both characters at the same time. And there are a lot of moments where I need to like concentrate and go back and forth and only control one character at the same time. But it just so happens that there are lots of segments which are great for you to control both at the same time, and it's kind of built around that, because there is that back and forth of one side always needing to help the other. And as you go further in the game, the challenges become like a bit more difficult, and a bit more timing is required, which kind of increases the challenge gently, especially if you're playing by yourself, because all of a sudden, instead of just concentrating on running and jumping, you need to suddenly start grabbing stuff, and you have these time limits to do them all. And I thought, you know, this is, even though I'm in the secondary demographic here, at least when playing it this way, that was like amazing. Like, it's just an amazing challenge to try to do, which I think would be like a really enjoyable thing for people to try if they wanted something a bit more offbeat. And there are also plenty of like secrets and side challenges as well if you really want something challenging, because aside from just going through the level, you also have lots of collectibles and secrets to find, as well as these little side areas with like a dedicated platforming coordination thing. That said, there are a couple of weird things that I noticed, and one of them is that the soundtrack's actually rather weak. I didn't really notice it at all, and I don't think there was anything interesting about it at all, and that's probably the one weak point of this game. There is also this situation where the fish has these enemies that can kill them, but it's actually a one-hit kill. There's no health system, there's no three-strike system, it's just one hit in, you're out, and you get sent back to a checkpoint. I can kind of imagine this being possibly frustrating, but on the other hand, the checkpoints are quite frequent, so every time you clear one or two areas, there's a checkpoint. So the most that you'll be sent back is really just one room or two rooms, and that's kind of it. I will add though that I found these levels to be a little bit on the long side. It took about 20 to 30 minutes for me to finish each of the two levels that I did play so far, and that's about twice as long as I would want it to be if I was giving this to a child to play that's about 10 years old. The general rule of thumb is that you give about 1 minute for each year that they are old, and I'm not really sure how well they would sit still if it went past 15 minutes. As a final thing that I thought was an interesting little touch is that for some reason they're using button agnostic symbols. So like, this is a trend that started like probably quite recently, 5 or 6 years ago, especially with the Switch. But I first saw it in Final Fantasy XV's PC port, where instead of a face button showing A or B, they actually showed 4 buttons and then highlighted the button in question, and that allows you to just use any kind of controller and not worry about knowing which face button is which. And I thought it was an odd touch. Not necessarily bad, but just not something I see by default, and that kind of made me think of how this might be a great game on the Switch. I can, like, for some reason I can just imagine not even just switching modes, you know, like if you're on the Switch and you're on Joy-Cons, I can imagine you just handing the controller to the other player, and you don't need to pause and switch modes to switch to two-player mode. Like, you just give the controller to the other person. And unfortunately, I'm reviewing this on Steam, and I don't have the ability to just try doing that on someone, but I can kind of imagine that being a cool, very subtle feature. If you're looking for something offbeat as a challenge where you control two things at the same time, or if you're possibly looking for something to kind of show or play with a child, those are two very different demographics, but for some reason it works well here. Like, this game feels good for both of them, I think. I didn't try this on a kid, so I can't really speak entirely for that. Like, I can't say that with confirmation, but I can kind of see this being quite good as a kind of introductory platformer. But on the offbeat side of things, the platforming feels pretty good, and controlling two players at the same time, it's a fun challenge. So yeah, it's like, it just came out on Steam, and I'm supposed to tell you that it's on sale or something, so do check it out, or at least play the demo.